everybody. I have a story about Hanukkah that's called Latkes, Latkes, Good to Eat. And this story is by Naomi Howland. Look, we talked about those latkes, latkes, or potato pancakes in our other story we read. Those are kind of like pancakes, but they remind Miss Spies of hash browns from McDonald's. They're really yummy. Have you ever had them before? Yes, delicious. So when I'm reading this, think about having those hash browns because that's what potato pancakes or latkes are like. Here we go. Once, out on the outskirts of a tiny village, a girl named Sadie lived with her four little brothers, Herschel, Halil, Haim, and the baby, Max. Their mama lived there too, but she was away helping Aunt Rose with her new baby. The family was so poor that the one coin in Sadie's purse never had another coin to keep it company. Their house was so drafty and chilly, the wind whistled through it like a train going to Moscow, and they were always hungry. This year was the first night. It was the first night of Hanukkah, and it was the coldest night yet. And the snow was deep. Sadie says, "Boys, go out and find some firewood." "Oh, it's too cold outside," Herschel said, and so he pushed Halil to the door. "It's too dark outside," Halil complained. "You go." And so he pushed Haim to the door. "But the wood is so heavy," Haim whined. "You go," and he pointed back at Herschel. Sadie sighed. "I will go get the wood. Watch the baby until I return." Sadie's boots sank into the snow. She walked from tree to tree, picking up fallen branches. An hour passed, and it got colder and darker, and the bitter wind began to blow. At last, Sadie packed up the wood and she was turning around to go home. Suddenly, a twig snapped. She stepped on it. Sadie whirled around to see a bent old woman standing before her. The woman's face was creased and lined with a bit of wrinkles. The old woman, she sneezed. "Achoo!" "Bless you, Tante," Sadie said. And she noticed that the old woman's shoulders were trembling and her coat was shabby and thin. "Are you cold?" "Oh, I am, dear," said the old woman, shivering, "and I have no more firewood." She blew on her hands to try to warm them up a little. Sadie didn't even hesitate. She said, "Please, take this firewood for your fire," she said, and she piled all of the firewood that she gathered into the old woman's sack. Wow, how kind, because we know that she's just as cold, but she's giving all of that to the old woman who's cold. "Oh, thank you," said the woman. "You are such a kind child. Now I have a gift for you." She unhooked a frying pan from her belt. "When you are hungry for food tonight, say these words: Latkes, latkes, good to eat. Cook me up a Hanukkah treat. And when you're not hungry anymore, say, a great miracle happened here." "Thank you, Tante," said Sadie. "Never forget the words that I have taught you," warned the old woman. "Keep them a secret. Shh. Only you may have the gift that I've given you." And with that, she hobbled off towards home. Now Sadie ran home quick. "Quickly, boys, let's light the menorah," she said. "I have a surprise." Look at the surprise behind her back. As soon as they said the blessing and lit the first candles, Herschel said, "Well, what's the surprise? What's the surprise? And where is our wood for our fire?" asked Halil. "Well, I met an old woman in the forest. I gave her all of our wood because she was so cold, and she gave me this frying pan." "What? A frying pan?" cried Herschel. "We don't even have a fire." "We don't even have any food," Haim complained. "Just watch," said Sadie. So she put the pan on the cold stove and she whispered the old woman's words. "Latkes, latkes, good to eat. Cook me up a Hanukkah treat." And at that moment, a fire danced up underneath the frying pan. Right away, 5 golden sizzling latkes were in the oil. The 4 boys crowded around the stove. How'd you do that? Asked Herschel. That's the secret, right? The old woman told me I couldn't tell, answered Sadie. As soon as she put the latkes on the boys' plates, 5 more latkes appeared in the pan. Can I try? Asked Halil. No, let me. Haim pushed him out of the way. Nope, said Sadie. Only I can use the frying pan. When the plates were full and heaping with latkes, Sadie whispered, a great miracle has happened here. And the magic frying pan stopped cooking just like that. And they ate until their stomachs were full. The next night, after Sadie and her brothers lit the menorah, Sadie set the frying pan on the stove, and in a hushed voice, she repeated the words, latkes, latkes, good to eat. Cook me up a Hanukkah treat. Immediately, a fire glowed under the pan where the 5 delicious latkes were sizzling. When the plates were heaped high again with food, Sadie said softly, a great miracle has happened here. And the frying pan stopped cooking just like that. Let me show you both pages of this one. Each night of Hanukkah, the children sat down to another tasty dinner of potato pancakes. Then, the afternoon of the 8th night, Sadie put on her shawl. I'm going to go find that old woman and invite her to come and eat latkes with us, she said. I will cook them when I get back. Take care of the baby. And don't touch the frying pan, she said. Altogether, the brothers nodded their heads and solemnly said, we promise. Only a minute after Sadie had closed the door, Herschel boasted, I heard the words. You did not, said Halil, and we aren't supposed to touch the frying pan. I did too, said Herschel. We could just eat a few latkes, said Zaim. Sadie won't know. Max the baby said, latkes, latkes. The boys looked at Herschel. Herschel looked at the pan. To use the frying pan, he said, just watch. And he put the frying pan on the stove and he said, latkes, latkes, good to eat. Cook me up a Hanukkah treat. And the stove lit itself with a bright flame. And all at once the frying pan was filled with 5 latkes sputtering in the oil. When the latkes were hot and golden, Herschel said, great miracle happened here. The frying pan began cooking 5 more latkes, because that wasn't the word, with tender centers and crisp, lacy edges. We have enough, brother! We have enough! But the frying pan kept on cooking. The little boys piled their plates high with latkes. The little boys said, here, great miracles happened, tried Herschel. But the frying pan cooked up 5 more luscious, brown, flaked latkes. They're not saying it right, so it's still cooking. The 4 brothers ate fast, but the frying pan cooked faster. Soon they had every dish, all the mixing bowls, and the wash tub all steaming with hot, savory, salty latkes. Stop, frying pan, stop! Happy green miracles here, baby Max tried. But the pan kept cooking. The boys had latkes in the cupboards, under the bed. They fed latkes to the kitty cat. They're just everywhere. They didn't listen. Soon the latkes were spilling out of the door. Look at that. The smell of potatoes and onions and oil floated all the way down to the village. The fishmonger, holding a fresh carp, paused to smell in the fragrance. The village gossip people and even all the people that were shopping stopped talking long enough to inhale the Hanukkah cooking. They smell it. Meanwhile, Sadie had walked deep into the forest to find the old lady. Tante, Tante, she called over and over, but there was no answer. Where could the old woman be? Soon the sun was going to go down, and Sadie needed to get home by dark to light the menorah. Now she wasn't even sure she knew how to get home. Bony branches scratched the sky. Sadie shivered. It was so cold. Tante, she called again. The wind whistled through the dark trees. It carried a tantalizing aroma. There was a rustle of dry leaves, and the old woman appeared. There she is. Before Sadie could say a word, the old woman held up her hand for silence so she could sniff the air. Sadie, too, breathed in deeply. Potatoes, onions, oil, latkes! Oh, no, she cried. Following her nose, she began to run, with the old woman close behind her. What did she realize? Yep, that her brothers did not listen. She smells them. When Sadie reached the edge of the village, she could not believe her eyes. Her house had almost disappeared under a mountain of latkes. She scrambled up the pile of warm latkes and peeked and looked into the window. Her brothers were standing at the stove eating latkes as fast as they could, and more latkes were still sizzling in the pan. Look. A great miracle happened here, Sadie shouted, and the frying pan stopped cooking just like that. Herschel, Haim, Halil, and the baby Max promised, we will never touch the frying pan again. And Sadie put them all to bed with tummy aches. Oh my goodness, look at this illustration picture. Look at all the latkes. But what will we do with all the latkes, she wondered. I could carry them away, said the village porter. I could sweep them away, said the broom seller. We could eat them, said someone else. It was Mama. She was home from helping Aunt Rose. We will have a Hanukkah feast, said Sadie. Everyone is invited. Everyone. See, Mommy, she's back. What a party the village had that night. There was singing and dancing and dreidel playing, and of course there was latkes. Golden, tongue-burning hot, tender yet crisp, lacy, luscious, brown-flecked, savory, salty, scrumptious latkes to eat. And no one in the tiny village was ever hungry on Hanukkah again. Wow, they've eaten a lot of them. The pile is getting much smaller, but what a party. And on the back, there is a recipe for latkes if you ever wanted to try them at home. Sadie's latkes. Sadie would have made latkes this way if she didn't have a magic frying pan. You could try it. I hope you enjoyed the story of latkes, good to eat.